So we're in a blind versus blind spot where Corey Lenug finally decided not to raise into me, which is not normal because I think he's raised into me every time. I'm going to be betting quite large. I decided to check flop just because he timed down and checked, which every time he's timed all the way down and done something, he's had absolute error. So I'm just hoping that he picked up some sort of draw here or pair. And obviously I'm just going to be whaling this flop. Yeah, I kind of want him to be like raising me sometimes too, though, like with bluffs or with a deuce. And we're gonna bet 8. The reason I bet 8, it's gonna look like some sort of value, obviously, but I don't want him just to call with a deuce. Like I want him to raise with a deuce. He doesn't have 7-8 very often. It is sometimes possible, and oh shit. I guess I have to fold. There's just no reason to stick in $700 more in a pot size that small, which sucks. I fold. Yeah, I fold. I don't think he's a big enough idiot to do that with an air. That would be terrible. So anyway, I had to fold the second nuts there, but it is what it is. I don't think he'd be over shoving that much money with less than 7-8. It'd be pretty terrible. Kind of a funny spot. That one will definitely be making the the reel and getting put out there. The $1,300 shove into the $27 pot or whatever it was. And you know, people do that because sometimes they actually do get called. There are certain people out there that are not willing to fold second nuts. They just won't do it. Obviously, if I had like half of my money in there already at that point, then I would have called off, I'm sure. But given the pot size and the way the hand played, it doesn't make any sense. Going to be 3-betting, keeping my 3-bet size the exact same amount against Lenug, so he doesn't really pick up betting tells. One time it made it, I think, 34, and I recognized the mistake. 31's kind of been my 3-bet number against him, and he hasn't been folding to 3-bets at all, almost ever. Definitely a flop that I'm going to be c-betting and hoping he has something. Being this deep, and he leads into me, I think by raising he might put me on air sometimes, so I am going to raise in fairly quickly. Hopefully he puts me on some sort of air. He doesn't. He makes a quick fold. If that was a better player, I probably would have just called, representing worse than an ace there. You know, like 10s, jacks, or flush draw or an 8 or something. But given that dynamic, I just keep going with the player dynamic. I'm trying to just be as aggressive as possible against this guy and getting value, like hopefully max value when I hit hands. And unfortunately, he just hasn't had anything to go along with it, which really sucks. I'm going to be c-betting and probably giving up if he decides to do anything. And he calls. A 5 actually might be good in this spot, given that he limped. A lot of the times he would just have a random diamond or a 3. Because he had been raising into me a lot. So if he bets here, I'm actually tempted to call, because he shouldn't have, he probably shouldn't be betting a 9 too often. He probably shouldn't be betting a 10 too often, maybe sometimes. He might have a random queen, like queen 7, but a 5 is actually good here, I think, about half the time, so it makes the call okay. And I'm all right with it. Yeah, and he has 6 high there. So like random diamonds that I thought he'd have, or even a 3 that he turned into a bluff, that's very possible also. So that's the reason I call it the 5 there. And I think raising isn't necessary because it doesn't represent anything but a flush, and he's just not going to be putting me on a flush very often. So I elect to raise with Jack-9 of hearts. From under the gun, I get a call from Mr. Lenug, who's been calling a lot. he's gonna have just random air so much of the time. Is jack high good enough? I think I can represent a real hand by checking. If he leads into me, I'm gonna have to raise. Unfortunately, he does lead, and I'm gonna raise just because if I can represent an ace. Yes, sometimes he has it, and I lose and don't even get to see my flush draw happen. And if he has a 6 or a deuce, I have a ton of outs against it, and hopefully he folds. I get fucking 3-bet. Is he ever 3-bet bluffing here? Sometimes. I think calling I can represent a pretty big hand, and I still have my flush draw to boot. I hit the flush, but it makes a boat, which is really fucking weird. But by me calling, okay, I have to fold again. So obviously he did have an ace because he just wouldn't be doing that. Because by me calling a 3-bet on the turn, I have a huge hand a lot of the time, and that's the reason I call there. Is because he should shut down on his bluffs, given that I called a 3-bet on a board that's that dry. It's unfortunate that the hard board paired, unless he already had like ace-6 and was boated already, then it was pretty lucky of me. Fold to him once, 9-5 offsuit. So we have king jack offsuit in the small blind. I don't like playing out of position. For those of you who watch a lot of my videos, I really don't like doing it. However, hands that have showdown value, king high, ace highs, or pairs, makes it a lot easier to play out of position. Also, I could 3-bet for value here, knowing that I'm going to get called by all worse kings and all worse jacks. And so check calling or check raising the spot I think is okay. I think check folding is too awful. My hand's just too good. Like, my hand is good so much of the time, especially when he bets, that folding is kind of out of the question. No, a 9's a bad card for multiple reasons, because all of his air, not all of it, but a lot of his air now turned to draw. Like, let's say he had queen jack, or let's say he had like, I'm kind of forced to bet that card, just in case he has random like small pairs or something, like ace-3, something like that. It's kind of a hard call. Another reason for calling boards like that is if I do turn a king or a jack, he's gonna keep barreling and have no idea. I floated with king jack high. King jack high is the best hand a lot of the time, and if you check raise that board, you could get floated a lot and outplayed. That is for sure, for how deep we are. And if you check fold, I think you're check folding the best hand too often. That's why I think check calling there is best, especially at the times where you end up turning a king or a jack and they just keep barreling off.